Hello everybody, welcome to week 1. Now, because this is an online class and it's only 8 weeks and we got a big old text to cover, we are going to be reading chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 this week. I know it's a lot to cover, but it's important that you stay up on the reading because again, this affects your discussions and what we're learning. So I'm just going to cover what's in those really quickly as fast as I can without my camera shutting off on me again. So in week 1, we're looking at the chapter 1, we're looking at science of human development. It is a science. This is psychology. There is science involved. What is human development? How we grow and develop as human beings. We're looking at the complexities of studying growth. And I'm sorry, I have this giant textbook in front of me. I'm trying here. Of growth and over the lifespan. What is the lifespan? Lifespan is from conception to death. We're going to look at different kind of research methods. What is a research method? Well, it's a study, and it's a scientific study on how we do certain things, how we actually research behavior, and we're going to look at the changes over time in people. You know, what you are when you're born is not who you are when you die, and there's everything in between. And then we're going to look at the conclusions and how we interpret developmental studies. And so we're going to look at understanding how and why we do things and the study of human development. You're going to again look at scientific method. We're going to talk about some theories, nature versus nurture. Are we born with certain traits, or do we develop them as we grow, or is it a combination of both? We're going to look at that. We're going to look at the lifespan perspective in chapter 1, the person and how we develop from beginning to end. And everyone's different, but there are some basic things that are pretty much the same. And we're going to look at that and how that's also affected by culture and a lot of different things. Socioeconomics, that's a big part. The economic background that you come from, the culture you come from has a big part. And then we're going to look at multicultures. Multicultural, we have a lot of that going on in our world today. It's a global world we live in. So how does that affect our development, depending on where you live in the world? We're going to look at again, culture and race, and then we're going to look at multidisciplinary development, meaning there's a lot of different facets to development. Genetics, research on depression, there's a lot of different things. We're looking at the brain and how the brain works in your development. Finally, we're going to look at using methods, observation and scientific methods. What are they and how do they work? And how do we actually do an experiment in human development to learn something that we want to know? We as practitioners do that all the time, and we're going to study some pretty amazing theories. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. Longitudinal research is when we study something for a very long period of time, not just once over a short time, but a long time. And so that's longitudinal research. Okay, we're going to do cross-sectional research. We're going to look at that. When we take sections of different people, populations, behaviors, whatever, and examine it. We're going to take cross sections where we can pull stuff out. How does that change the way the outcomes happen? And then we're going to look at the causes and challenges in science. It is science. It's not perfect. And then there's ethical considerations when it comes to a study, especially in terms of human studies. Why? Because when we do things that are not good, we can damage people, and that is not what we're called to do. So we're going to look at the ethical pieces of it. Okay, and then we're going to go into chapter 2, which is life's theories of development. What are theories of development? Well, there's some great theorists out there, starting from the very beginning with Freud and going on to today. We have some very amazing theories we're going to look at. But a theory, you have to remember, it's a question we're trying to answer. Is it perfect? Is it 100% accurate? Probably not. It's a theory. So we do theories to test them. But we're going to look at some what we call grand theories in psychology. Psychoanalytical theory was Freud and Erikson. And then we're looking at behaviorism theory, which is conditioning and social learning. We're going to look at cognitive theory. That's Piaget, which is one of the grandfathers of studying of child development. And then we're going to compare those theories. And we're going to look at some newer theories, Vygotsky and beyond. And we're going to look at the new universal perspective, which is humanism and evolutionary theory. As we grow, as our cultures change, so do our perspectives. So that's a very important thing to remember. And then we're going to ask ourselves, what do these theories contribute? We're looking at norms. Norms meaning, what is the normal things that our culture do or people do? And developmental theory is, how do we develop? Again, these grand theories are all in your book, and you'll get into detail, and we'll have a great discussion about that in our discussions, but you'll get to meet some of these amazing theorists that have studied human development. One of my personal favorites, of course, is Piaget. Freud, as you know, is the father of psychology, but since him have come some amazing people, and you'll get to compare these theories. And you actually have a really nice, on page 49, highlights from developmental psychology over the centuries. So you can actually look going back from 1632 all the way up to current theories and beyond. So that's a pretty neat little chart you can see. And we're going to look at the newer theories, like I said, and how it affects our development. Okay? And now, I'm trying not to run out of time. We're going to go into chapter 3. And that is heredity and environment. How does your heredity, nature versus nurture, your heredity, the genes and the behaviors you're born with, and how does it couple with your environment? Or is it one or the other, or is it a combination of both? There's a lot of theories on that. So we're going to talk about genetic code, your genes, what you come into this world with based on your family lineage, okay? And we're going to talk about genes and the variations in genes and how they change. We're going to look at the beginning of life, how genes match, male or female, DNA. We're going to discover all of that, new cells and new functions, okay? And then we're going to look at opposing perspectives. Are there too many boys? We're going to look at twin studies. And we're going to look at assisted reproduction. This is a new thing we've never had to talk about before, but now we have science that can help us actually reproduce. It's pretty amazing. And then we're going to look at genotype to phenotype. We're going to look at epigenetics and gene interactions and how we can actually change these things with science, okay? And again, nature versus nurture. I mean, are we genetically predisposed to be an alcoholic, for example? Are you predisposed to have a temper? Are you predisposed to be gentle? Are you predisposed to be tall, short, this, that, have certain characteristics? And we're going to look at how, like nearsightedness, for example. Does your father have the tendency to have bad eyes? I mean, my eyes are just like my daddy's eyes. I got that from him. And then we're going to look at how we can apply practical applications and how we can use this research. And then chromosomal and genetic problems, what can happen when things go wrong. We're going to look at some of that genetic counseling and testing and what can happen when things don't go to plan. And we're going to look at how science addresses those developmental changes. And then we're going to get into chapter 4, which is prenatal development. Prenatal means before, and birth. So from conception to birth, okay? So we're going to look at the different stages, the germinal stage from 14 days, the embryo stage from the third through the 8th week of fetal development. We're going to look at birth, the Newton theories and medical assistance and alternatives to hospital technology, how we can actually, how they actually affect the birth of different situations and how it affects how we, who we are as people. Problems and solutions. So we're going to look at what can happen in the fetus. Obviously, harmful substances, smoking, alcohol, drugs. We're going to look at risk analysis with the fetus, and we're going to look at the research on these things. What does the research tell us about these types of situations? And we're going to look at opposing perspectives. What do people live to do? Low birth rate. We're going to look at complications during birth. A lot of things can happen during this period and at birth as well. At the turn of the century, I think it was 3 out of 5 children died after birth, and many, many, many women died during childbirth. So that's changed with modern science, but it's still a problem. And then we're going to look at the new family, what it is to be the newborn, to be a new father, a new mother, and a parent and their alliance, and also bonding. Bonding is a huge part of the developmental process of a fetus, or a baby, I should say. Bonding. Now, some believe it starts as fetus. We talk to our babies before they're born, They feel us, they sense us, they know who we are when they come out. But bonding is a very important part of our development. Babies who do not bond well, or have, maybe they're in an orphanage, or they have abusive backgrounds or whatever, and they don't bond, we're looking at the psychological outcomes of that. So this is going to be a great 4 chapters and some great stuff to discuss. And I again encourage you to look at your syllabus and make sure you stay on track. And I will see you in the course shell, and have a great week 1.